Mom's sick, so I came instead. Little girl walked into the job interview. What the millionaire CEO? The little girl's shoes were too big for her feet, and the folder she carried was heavier than her arms should have known how to hold. When the glass doors of the skyscraper slid open, no one expected a child to step inside alone, certainly not a child who looked like she had practiced courage all morning and was about to lose it at any second. She stood there, small against marble floors and towering walls, clutching a worn manila folder to her chest as if it were armor. And with one sentence, simple, honest, devastating, she would change the lives of everyone who saw her that day. Mom's sick, so I came instead. Before the story pulls you any further into its heart, take a moment, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of humanity, to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us who we are meant to be. The building belonged to Whitmore Solutions, one of the most successful consulting firms in the United States, founded by Ethan Whitmore, a self-made millionaire CEO known more for his discipline than his warmth. The lobby reflected his reputation: clean lines, muted colors, a silence that felt intentional. Assistants moved with purpose, executives spoke in hushed tones, and ambition seemed to hang in the air like perfume. That morning, interviews were scheduled for a junior administrative role, a position that paid modestly but offered health insurance, stability, and hope. Hope was the only reason Hannah Miller had applied. Hannah was a single mother in Ohio who had moved to Chicago after her husband passed away in a workplace accident 2 years earlier. She worked nights cleaning offices, days stitching alterations for neighbors, and still managed to fall behind on rent. When her health began to fail, persistent fevers, weakness, and dizzy spells she could no longer ignore, she knew she needed something different. A steady job. Insurance. Time. She landed an interview at Whitmore Solutions after weeks of silence from other companies. It felt like a miracle. Until the morning of the interview, when she collapsed in her kitchen. Her daughter, Lily, was 6 years old. Too young to understand medical terms, but old enough to understand fear. She watched her mother shake on the floor, pale and burning at the same time. The ambulance came. Neighbors whispered. And somewhere between the sirens and the hospital room, Lily remembered the folder on the kitchen table, the one her mother had prepared the night before. Résumé. References. Notes written in careful handwriting. At the top, circled twice, was the address and time of the interview. Hannah slept under hospital lights, unaware that her daughter was making the bravest decision of her life. Lily had no plan beyond what her mother always told her: be honest, be polite, and don't give up. She took the bus downtown with money from the cookie jar. She followed the address. She walked into the building that made her feel like an ant. And when the receptionist bent down, confused and concerned, Lily explained in a small, steady voice that her mom couldn't come. She was sick. Very sick. So Lily came instead. Word traveled fast. Some employees smiled sadly. Others frowned, worried about policy, liability, professionalism. Someone called security, but no one had the heart to escort her out. And then, as if fate itself had scheduled the moment, Ethan Whitmore stepped out of the elevator. Ethan had built his empire on logic. Numbers made sense to him. People, less so. His childhood had been shaped by scarcity, a distant father, and a belief that emotion slowed progress. He noticed Lily because she didn't belong. Because she stood still while everyone else rushed. Because she held that folder like it was a lifeline. When he learned why she was there, something shifted. Ethan invited Lily into the interview room. Not as a spectacle. Not as charity. But because for the first time in years, something mattered more than efficiency. Lily sat in a chair too tall for her legs, feet swinging nervously, eyes darting between the polished table and the man across from her. She slid the folder forward, careful and deliberate, as if she were presenting her mother's entire life. Inside were documents smudged from use, edges bent from being folded and unfolded too many times. Ethan saw the effort. The late nights. The hope. And in Lily's eyes, he saw something else, fear that sounded like responsibility. A child trying to be an adult because the world had forced her to. Ethan asked gentle questions. Not about experience, but about Hannah. Lily talked about her mom working hard, about how she never complained, about how she sang while cooking even when she was tired. She spoke of hospital bills, of eviction notices, of nights where dinner was toast and peanut butter. She didn't cry. She just told the truth. By the time Lily finished, the room felt smaller. Heavier. Ethan excused himself, leaving Lily with a glass of juice and a promise he'd be right back. Outside, he stood still longer than anyone had ever seen him do. He thought about his own mother, who worked 2 jobs and still tucked him in every night. About how no one had shown up for her when she needed it most. About the cost of indifference. Hannah woke up that afternoon to a hospital room filled with light and confusion. She learned what Lily had done when a nurse handed her a phone. There were missed calls. Voicemails. One message stood out. Calm. Clear. Professional. Ethan Whitmore. By the time Hannah was discharged 2 days later, everything had changed. Her medical tests had revealed a treatable autoimmune condition, caught just in time. Whitmore Solutions offered her the job, with flexible hours, remote options, and full benefits starting immediately. They covered her initial medical bills through a newly established employee emergency fund. Ethan personally arranged childcare support during Hannah's recovery. Not as charity, but as policy, one he implemented company-wide after that day. Lily became a quiet legend in the building. Employees left notes on her desk when she visited. Some said she reminded them why they worked. Others said she reminded them who they wanted to be. Ethan invited her to his office one afternoon and gave her a small framed certificate that read, "Bravest Applicant." She didn't fully understand it, but she smiled like she did. Months passed. Hannah healed. She worked hard, grateful and determined. She brought Lily to the office sometimes, where the world no longer felt so cold or large. Ethan watched them from a distance, changed in ways no quarterly report could measure. He began leaving earlier. Asking questions. Listening. Near the end of the year, at the company holiday gathering, Ethan shared the story. Not as a headline. Not as a marketing campaign. But as a reminder. That success without compassion is empty. That sometimes, the most important interviews don't come with suits and resumes, but with courage and love. If this story is touching your heart, if it's reminding you of someone you love or a moment you wish had gone differently, please take a second right now to like this video, share it with someone who believes in humanity, and subscribe for more stories that matter. And before we close, I want to ask you something special. Please comment below with one word that this story made you feel. Hope. Tears. Gratitude. Love. Your words matter more than you know. Because somewhere, right now, a child is carrying a burden too big for their hands. And somewhere else, someone is deciding whether to open a door, or walk past it. This story reminds us that kindness doesn't need permission. It just needs one person brave enough to act. The change inside Whitmore Solutions did not happen overnight, but it was undeniable. What began as one quiet morning with a little girl holding a folder slowly reshaped the soul of an entire company. People who once rushed past one another now paused. Managers who had measured worth only in output began asking about families, about health, about life beyond office walls. It was as if Lily's small footsteps had left marks no polish could erase. Hannah returned to work after her recovery with a strength she didn't know she still possessed. Every morning, she stood a little straighter, not because life had become easy, but because she had been seen. She worked diligently, often staying late, learning systems she had never touched before, proving, mostly to herself, that she deserved to be there. Yet even on her hardest days, she carried a quiet peace, knowing her daughter no longer had to carry adult fears alone. Lily, meanwhile, adjusted to a new version of childhood. One where her mother smiled more often. One where the mailbox no longer delivered threats. One where bedtime stories didn't end in whispered worries. She still remembered that interview room, the shiny table, the serious man who had listened to her like she mattered. In her drawings, she often sketched tall buildings with big doors and tiny people walking inside, always holding hands. Ethan Whitmore found himself thinking about Lily more than he expected. Not in a sentimental way, but as a mirror. He saw in her the person he had once been before ambition hardened him. The boy who believed effort would be met with fairness. The boy who thought adults always did the right thing. He began questioning decisions he had made over the years, people he had overlooked, chances he had denied, doors he had kept closed simply because it was easier that way. One evening, long after the office had emptied, Ethan stood alone in the interview room where Lily had sat. The chair still seemed too big. The memory still too heavy. He realized something then that no business school had ever taught him: leadership wasn't about control. It was about responsibility. Not just for profit, but for people. That realization became action. Whitmore Solutions launched a foundation quietly, without press releases or headlines. Its purpose was simple: support single parents facing medical or financial crises, starting with employment opportunities and healthcare access. Ethan insisted it be run with dignity, not pity. Help without humiliation. Opportunity without conditions. Hannah never asked for more than what she was given, but one afternoon she was called into Ethan's office again. Her hands trembled the way they had months ago, but this time, she was not afraid. Ethan spoke carefully, explaining that her work ethic, integrity, and resilience had not gone unnoticed. He offered her a promotion into a permanent operations role, one that would allow her to grow, to lead, and to secure a future she once believed was out of reach. Hannah cried that day. Not because of the title or the salary, but because the world had finally answered her effort with kindness instead of silence. At home that night, Lily listened as her mother explained everything. She didn't fully understand promotions or operations, but she understood relief. She understood that her mom wouldn't disappear into hospitals again without help. She understood that sometimes, scary days lead to safe tomorrows. Years passed. Lily grew taller. Braver. She spoke in class with confidence. She dreamed without apology. On career day at school, she didn't dress as a princess or a superhero. She dressed in a simple blazer and held a piece of paper, just like her mom once had. When asked what she wanted to be, she said she wanted to help people open doors. Ethan watched from afar as Hannah thrived, eventually leading teams, mentoring new hires who reminded her of herself. She became the kind of leader who noticed quiet struggles, who made space for honesty, who believed life didn't end when things fell apart, it simply changed direction. On the 10th anniversary of Whitmore Solutions, Ethan invited Lily and Hannah as guests of honor. No speeches were made about profits or expansion. Instead, Ethan spoke about a moment. A moment when success was redefined by a child who walked into a room she didn't belong in and spoke the truth without fear. He admitted, openly, that if Lily had not walked through those doors, he might have gone another decade without understanding what his success was missing. The audience stood. Not for him. For the story. Later that night, Lily stood near the same glass doors she had once walked through alone. Now she was surrounded, by her mother, by friends, by a future that felt wide instead of frightening. She looked up at Ethan and smiled, the same quiet smile she had worn years ago. Somewhere in the city, another single parent prepared for an interview. Somewhere, another child worried about tomorrow. But because one door had stayed open, many others would too. And that is how change really happens. Not with grand gestures, but with small moments of courage. Not with power, but with compassion. Not with words, but with listening. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you that kindness can change lives in ways we may never fully see, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope tonight, and subscribe to the channel. And before you leave, please comment one thing this story reminded you of, a person, a moment, or a feeling. Your voice might be the encouragement someone else is waiting for. Because sometimes, the bravest thing in the world is simply showing up, even when you're small, scared, and carrying more than you should.